United States conducts second day of strikes near the Strait of Hormuz. Iran targets bases in Bahrain and Kuwait. For a second straight day, United States Central Command struck Iranian military sites near the Strait of Hormuz on June 27, 2026, after a one-way attack drone hit the Panama-flagged oil tanker Kiku, which was carrying more than 2 million barrels of crude. Central Command said it struck about 10 targets: air defenses, drone and mine layer sites, and surveillance infrastructure at locations such as Sirik and Keshm Island. Then, early Sunday, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said it fired missiles and drones at United States bases in Kuwait and Bahrain in retaliation. Both governments condemned the strikes as violations of their sovereignty. The fighting threatens a ceasefire signed just days earlier, and the stakes are global because the strait carries a large share of the world's seaborne oil. Start with what every side concedes. United States forces conducted strikes on Iranian military sites near the strait on both June 26th and June 27th. A one-way attack drone struck the tanker Kiku near the strait, and Central Command cited that as the trigger for the June 27th strikes, reporting no crew injuries and no cargo leak. Iran's Guard Corps said it then fired missiles and drones at United States military sites in Kuwait, including the Ali Al Salem base, and in Bahrain, including the Fifth Fleet facility. Bahrain and Kuwait publicly condemned the attacks as violations of their sovereignty. A 14-point ceasefire framework, the Islamabad Memorandum, was signed on June 17th by the United States and Iran. President Trump said he would militarily complete the job if Iran kept attacking. Vice President J.D. Vance said the United States had honored the ceasefire. The Guard Corps warned that continued strikes would bring all diplomacy to a complete halt, and before this round of escalation, Brent crude had fallen to roughly $72 a barrel as Hormuz shipping resumed under the truce. Beneath the day's events sit pressures that no statement can wish away. Iran's core leverage is its physical ability to threaten the Strait of Hormuz, so it uses pressure on shipping to extract relief and deterrence, regardless of who is formally right about the ceasefire. The United States is structurally committed to keeping the strait open for global energy and to protecting its Gulf-based forces, which pushes it toward a military response to any tanker attack, whatever the rhetoric of the day. Iran needs the memorandum's promised sanctions relief and funds, yet its leadership also needs to show domestic hardliners it can hit back, two pulls in opposite directions, and the Gulf host states must keep United States security guarantees while avoiding open war with their large neighbor, so they condemn loudly but press for calm. The material reality is unforgiving. Tanker attacks and coastal strikes happen within a few miles of major shipping lanes and of Gulf states packed with United States bases. The truce reopened the waterway and pushed prices down, but the underlying war, rooted in failed nuclear talks and an earlier air conflict, was paused, not resolved. Each cycle of strike and counterstrike risks reversing the price relief and pulling United States forces deeper into direct combat. Now, how each side sees it in its own strongest terms. Washington argues it signed and honored a ceasefire that reopened the strait, lifted its blockade, and offered Iran relief, and that Iran broke it by attacking civilian shipping, so limited strikes on military targets are lawful self-defense and freedom of navigation enforcement, not aggression. In its own words, we honored it. Violence will be met with violence, and Iran can pick up the phone over disputes rather than fire drones. Its incentive is to deter attacks on Gulf shipping, protect its forces and oil flows, and preserve the credibility of the deal Trump brokered without being drawn into a full war. The impact is that its forces are now in direct combat, and its bases in Bahrain and Kuwait are exposed to retaliation, with domestic political risk tied to oil prices and war fatigue. Iran argues the United States and Israel are the real violators, pointing to continued strikes and the earlier naval blockade of Iranian ports, and says its actions defend Iranian sovereignty and its control over the strait. In its terms, United States strikes breach Clause 1 of the Islamabad Memorandum, justifying retaliation and a halt to diplomacy. Its incentive is to restore deterrence after months of war, show it can impose costs on United States bases and Gulf shipping, secure the memorandum's promised relief, and manage hardline pressure at home. The impact is that it risks heavier United States strikes on its coast and deeper economic isolation if the deal collapses, with its leverage resting largely on its ability to threaten the Strait. Bahrain and Kuwait say they are being targeted on their own soil for hosting United States forces, calling the Iranian strikes a flagrant violation of their sovereignty that undermines de-escalation. They want protection without becoming a battlefield. Their incentive is to keep security ties to Washington while avoiding open confrontation with Iran. And the impact is direct missile and drone attacks, air defense alerts, and real safety and economic risks to their populations and to Gulf energy infrastructure. And for global energy markets, shippers, insurers, and oil importing economies treat the strait as critical infrastructure. Roughly a fifth of seaborne oil passes through it, so attacks on tankers and strikes near the waterway threaten supply and prices, regardless of who is at fault. Brent had eased to about $72 as traffic resumed. Renewed combat threatens to reverse that and raise costs for consumers worldwide. A brief word on how the coverage diverges. On the United States right, outlets such as Fox News lead with the tanker attack as the trigger and cast United States action purely as response. United States center-left and centrist coverage, from CNN to wire services like the Associated Press, frames a fragile ceasefire at the breaking point and tends towards straight, attributed sequencing of both sides' actions. Non-Western outlets, including Qatari-funded Al Jazeera and Iranian state media, foreground the wording in response to United States strikes and give Iran's sovereignty and battle damage claims prominent early placement, with Iranian state media reporting the claim of 8 destroyed facilities as fact, while minimizing the United States' denial. The two most load-bearing contested facts, who broke the ceasefire first and how much damage Iran's retaliation actually caused, are exactly where the framings diverge most, and where each listener should weigh the competing claims for themselves. Want the whole story, every side, with the sources? It's all at pressureoftruth.com.